Welcome back with America's podcast guest, Michael Phillips. Michael, the schedule comes out and it's almost like it's treated like there should be parades thrown because the grand announcements, we already knew who they were playing. We just didn't know when and where. But I'm curious for you, what was there a game that you jumped to right away when this schedule came out?
I'm a big bye week guy. I want to look at the bye week and know when the bye week is, both for the team and the flow of the year, and also for me personally. I usually wife and I get out of town on a couple of those days at least. So that's always, is it going to be like a nice fall retreat, like a rustic winery kind of situation? Will it be a winter, get south, go to the Bahamas, kind of thing? I'll hit you up to borrow the ESPN jet, something like that. I'm always looking out for little, quirks. And I think we've got one here with the double Giants game back to back. And then, I think you're looking at, we make so much of it. I'll preempt your next question here. We make so much of the game by game, but I think the most important thing is those first four, because those are the ones where we can say right now with reasonable confidence, what players are going to be playing for the other team in those first four. And we can already make our, what's that going to be like? Where will they be? What kind of season is it going to be? Is it going to be chase the leaders from behind or get out in front and be chased?
Well, and speaking of those four, you got Jacksonville, Detroit, and then the Eagles and Cowboys. So you need to come away with 2 or 3 wins out of that group. If you don't, the season is setting up in a bad way. That if I'd say you should sweep those first 2, but you've got to win 2 or 3 of those first 4, right? I mean, then that to me is a minimum 2 wins.
If you want to be a wild card team, you can come out of that 2-2 and still be perfectly fine. If you want to be a division winner, I think you got to come out of that 3-1, because you can't stumble 2 division games out of the gate. It's too much chasing later on, especially those 2. And I don't want to write off the Giants on May 12th, but I'm going to write off the Giants, John. They're not going to win the division this year.
I'll write them off on May 10th. I would have written them off.
Name that too, and we can bid how early we write off the Giants. Those are the 2 teams you're going to be competing against, Philly and Dallas. So it's an opportunity to make a strong statement early, start off with a win against them, and set the tone that you're going to be in that division hunt. Whether you can or not is another question, but if you're going to be in the hunt, you got to pick up one of those 2.
And when you look at the schedule, it does kind of break where there are natural breaks in the schedule. You open with those 2 games against teams that however they are this year, they're not coming off good years. And, then you have Eagles, Cowboys, Titans, but then you get the Bears, and now granted it's on the road, but it's still the Bears. They're not exactly, we're in a powerhouse.
Yep.
And, Green Bay, Colts, we don't know. Vikings, we don't know. But you do get you get the Houston, Atlanta, Giants trifecta. That's a good, again, we don't know how these teams are going to be, but if you had to bet on 3 teams that you felt like were still in that rebuilding phase, those are 3 of the teams. And you actually get them 4 in a row because you get like you said, you get the Giants twice right after the bye. So that's a good stretch for them. And it just feels like there are a couple of tough spots in this schedule. But is there one where you say, oh my God, you're not winning this game? They're just tough games. But there's nothing that would scare anybody.
Yeah, I'll cut against the grain here because I'm a big Titans believer. I think the Titans are a good team, and I know they.
Oh, I think they're a good team, but they
got their
team.
issues. So I'm looking at Cowboys, Titans, Bears, Packers. If you break that into a 4-game stretch, I'd say you're underdogs in 3 of those games, and the Bears is a Thursday night on the road, and it's roll the dice on a Thursday night road game. Like it, how many times do we see that? Tom Brady forgets his 4th down on a Thursday night game on the road. Like, just the weird things happen in those games.
Definitely.
So I'm looking at that as a brutal stretch, but your overall point stands.
I think it's a tough stretch. It's not a brutal stretch.
No. Year 3, easy schedule, more pieces in place. Today's revelation of the schedule does nothing to derail this train of they need to be a wild card team. They need to be in contention this year. That remains the driving storyline entering this season is it's year 3, show me something. And there's nothing tonight that's going to pour cold water on that.
Well, and I don't like, the strength of schedule stuff is very misleading because we're looking at a team, what they did last year. And like a team like Cleveland, you would think that they're going to be much improved with assuming Deshaun Watson is on the field for them. You don't like, what will Chicago do with the new coach and Justin Fields' second year? What does Jacksonville? They're going to be somewhat a mystery team. Lever's second year. So you're looking at last year, trying to project them a little bit. But in terms of the strength schedule, it is the easiest one along with Dallas. So that it does set up, and this team should be better in offensively. And because I think the other thing, Michael, too, and we already knew this, but I think they play two quarterbacks who finished in the top 10 in total QBR last year. And as opposed to last year, 6 of the top 10 they faced, and I think it was 8 of the top 14. That's a big difference. So you're right. I mean, this whole thing sets up with they should win. You can make a strong case that they should win 10 games or can win 10 or 11 games. And I don't know, maybe 11's pushing it, but 10 is not.
I don't think 10's pushing it. I'm going to jump on the bandwagon with you for 10. I think it's a favorable market. Look, I'm trying to be glass half full these rays the sunshine everywhere I go. If you want to be negative, I don't. But if you wanted to be negative, you'd point out those first 2 games, Jacksonville and Detroit, are high downside games. If you lose the home opener against Jacksonville, there's going to be this big push, get the fans out, get everybody going. If you lose that game, that's potentially devastating, not just your on-field efforts, but your off-the-field efforts as well.
Absolutely.
People leaving in traffic after Trevor Lawrence torches you for 4 touchdowns. So it's a high downside game, but look, this is the game they want to play right now. This is the game. This is the schedule they want to play. This is what they've built to the last 2 years. I think, every time we do one of these, I say the same thing, and that is this season rides on the defense. They've got to be significantly better than they were last year because they can be, because the talent level is significantly higher than it was last year. And this is a schedule where they will get every opportunity to prove, to tee off against some quarterbacks who got sacked a lot last year, some quarterbacks that weren't great. This is going to be reminiscent of that down the stretch run in 2020, where they faced, a lot of okay to mediocre quarterbacks several weeks in a row. They're going to do that again this year. It's going to be an opportunity for them to prove themselves.
But they do have, you look at their last 3 games are tough because you got at San Francisco. So depending on how Trey Lance is playing, we don't know. That's again another mystery, or it could be Jimmy G.
It could be,
But then you got the Browns and possibly Deshaun Watson, and then Dak Prescott, whom they have struggled against. So that's not the ideal finish, but 3 of the last 4 at home is a good finish. And so it would be fun if that last game against Dallas comes down to a playoff spot.
Oh, we've done that before.
Listen, you could finally buy a T-shirt that matters for one of these matchup games.
Did they make a T-shirt for the 2012 Dallas game? This would be the 10th anniversary of what I would argue is the high watermark of the entire FedEx Field era. You've lived more of it than I have, but on the 10th anniversary of potentially the greatest moment in FedEx Field history, Robert beating the Cowboys to secure a playoff spot.
Alfred Morris.
Thank you.
Alfred Morris. Game.
Sure. That we potentially get to run that back. That's exciting. That gets me excited. I was thinking hey, it's May 12th. This is schedule release. I'm a jaded sports writer. I'm not getting excited. You got me excited thinking about that. That's a juicy matchup.
Listen,
Cowboys, week 18. It's all on the line. Let's go.
I mean, that would be a great atmosphere if that's the case. And that's what you would see as some life to be able to breathe back into this franchise if you get that kind of a situation, because again, that crowd, that game was electric and that whole year was electric. So if they can get back to that, I think people will be pretty happy, whatever the name is. Right. And, I think that would be, what about, this is a selfish one for us. Yeah. I apologize for my phone keeps going off, but
tell Adam Schefter, you'll get to him in a minute.
Playing at San Francisco on Christmas Eve. Yeah. Selfishly, it is not the best deal for us.
Well, we can all agree. Look, this is also a raw deal for the fans because that game is a 4:05 p.m. kickoff, and I think many of our listeners probably attend Christmas Eve services with their families. I know we always do. right in that time zone, 5, 6, 7 o'clock PM, take the family, go to church, go to dinner, do the Christmas Eve things. That's right in that window of time. And, not that it'll stay there because it could get flexed if it's a meaningful game, but it can't get flexed the other way because we're on the West Coast. So that's a bad time for humanity to be watching sports is 4 o'clock on Christmas Eve. So because I'm a glass half full guy, that's my new persona, John. I will point out all home games are 1 o'clock kickoffs, no prime times. That's been a gripe of the fan base is it is tough to get to Landover on a Thursday night or a Monday night.
Attendance reflects that.
Well, and attendance reflects that. So I think it's a real positive from the schedule makers here that they're loaded up with 1 o'clock Sunday kicks. I think the fan base has spoken. That is their preferred kickoff time.
Well, and I also think if you're a network and you see the attendance at those games here, is that something you want to highlight? I don't think I wouldn't. And again, I think like you could get back to that. If they have a good year, if they win 10 games, we're going to see a couple primetime games easily in 2023, because that's typically how it works. And, I think getting one, listen, I was shocked that they put Philly on a Monday night game with Carson Wentz going back there. Who would have seen that coming? But that'll be another fun one too. You get 2 out of 3 weeks, you get him going to face the Colts, but going to face the Eagles will be a fun one for reporters, for fans, and just to see the reaction, how the crowd will be, but his reaction to all that on the field.
8:15 p.m. kickoff in Philly. That'll give him a little bit of time to hit a couple beverages before that game, John. I think they're going to come in good and lubed up.
There might be a couple of inebriated customers that night. Yes. Yeah, no. So, but looking at the schedule, and again, we already knew the opponent, so it's not like this is a shock, but I do think it does set up well for them to have, again, even those games that are tough, they're tough. I don't think Green Bay will be a very tough game. And I agree with you on Tennessee. That's a very tough game, but I think it's a winnable game. When you look at how things could go, I don't think it's them playing the Rams or someone like that.
Sure.
Or the Patriots back in the day.
I'm there's the opportunity to make hay here, and I think the road games are very favorable to it. The other game I play when I look at the schedule is what will Ron complain about, because that's the game he plays when he looks at the schedule.
Right.
And of course, the thing Ron will complain about is that he has to travel to the Thursday night game in Chicago. Traveling across the time zone on the short week there, John. But that's the biggest gripe. He's probably also not going to be happy with going Monday night in Philly.
That was going to be mine. That was
back-to-back road games off the Monday nighter. Yep. I would have to say though, if your biggest gripe involves a road game in Houston on 6 days rest, we're doing all right here.
Right. And so I think within the schedule, the context of the schedule, but when you look at this team, do you think they are, how much improvement do you think they've made from last year?
Well, I see, let's start with the quarterback because we have to, a major stride forward. My Taylor Heineke bona fides are well established. I love the kid. I'm glad he's still around. This is an upgrade at the most important position on the field. And here's the thing. The offense didn't stink last year. And I know that's, it kind of all got washed up in this everybody stunk mentality. The offense was fine, and they've got enough playmakers, and certainly now that they've taken Dodson, they've got enough playmakers to distribute the ball to. If this offense finished, how many teams make the playoffs now? 14, 16?
I think all of them do.
We'll put that to the test, don't you worry. 14, 7 in each league. If 14 teams make the playoffs, if this offense finishes 14th best in the National Football League, if we say they're going to be right around that middle of the pack, they're going to be a 14th best offense. You tell me right now, do they make the playoffs or not? I think the answer has to be, of course you think they make the playoffs, because this defense needs to be better than 14th in the league. And so, if the offense can just give you that, they can give you enough, it's time for that defense to take the lead, get the job done. We can debate that. And I think I could take either side of that debate. They didn't do enough at middle linebacker. I don't think they got deep enough in the secondary. I think there are still major holes on what should be this unit, but there's still a lot of raw talent there. and a lot of unrealized potential from last year, certainly up front, that if you can get the results you can get out of those guys, I think it's good enough.
And I also think a big key, again, I go back to the quarterbacks they're facing this year as opposed to last year. And it was why last year I thought they'd at least have worse numbers. I didn't think they'd be as bad as they were early on. And especially, and then late in the year, you can, like COVID and injuries and all that, they had an 8-game stretch where I went back and did the stats where they were about top 10 in a lot of areas, or right around that area. That's where they need to be. And that's where they should be with this schedule, with the quarterbacks they're facing. And again, like, listen, we don't know. I mean, Deshaun Watson, I said two of the top 10. Well, he didn't play last year. He'd be a top 10 guy. What does Trevor Lawrence do this year? So he may be much better with a new coach, a better coach, Doug Peterson. So some of that's misleading, but when you look at it, it's a different caliber that should help them.
2 against the Giants and a quarterback who's not top 10 unless he's playing against this team.
Right. And Jalen, right, exactly. And Jalen Hurts, who is, you don't know what you're going to get, but you will get a good running game. And so you've got to stop that. And I think that's where a guy like, Fedarius Mathis comes in, but you're right. They've got to have better linebacker play for them to take that step. I would like to have seen them add a little bit more in the secondary, and I think there's still time for some of that, but you're not talking high caliber players that you're going to be adding. You're going to be adding depth. And so I think, they still have work to do, but that's why you look at them as a 10-win team, not a 12-win team. I think the potential offensively is definitely to be in that middle of the pack and slightly above. So a lot depends on Curtis Samuel, stay healthy. Diami's got to progress. Gibson and Robinson, if they're the duo you think they are, there are questions. But funny thing is, I think Carson Wentz will be good enough to be in that range.
I think Carson Wentz will benefit so much from being in Washington, D.C., a place where we have watched so little good quarterback play. You think about the Indianapolis fans. Oh, boo, he's not Peyton Manning. He's not Andrew Luck. He's not Phillip Rivers. What is this guy? That will not be an issue here for him. That will not be a problem going forward.
They're not going to say, oh, he's not Josh Johnson. He's no Mark Sanchez.
If we're saying he's no Taylor Heineke, we have much bigger problems this year. Yeah,
we'll be having another discussion on another quarterback next year if that's the case.
Well, I had come on the pod. The reason I agreed to come on was I was under the impression this was when you'd be unveiling your mock preseason schedule, which I know we're all eagerly anticipating.
Well, I put out the challenge to Kevin Sheehan. If you're really something, because he likes that mock schedule, put out your mock 2023 schedule tomorrow. Because then you have to guess which of the 2 teams are going to be added next year for you. So that's when you can really do it. That's what you're doing. So
I love it.
Michael, I appreciate you coming on, and it's at least good to know what the schedule is and where we'll be and when.
I know it's roundly mocked when you run through and say win loss or all that, but I'm going to do it later tonight because why not?
There you go. Yeah. Again, so you're sticking with 16-1, right? Resting the starters in week 18.
Well, I said 15-2 because the rest are going to job them in one of the games, and that's unacceptable
because they don't like the name.
Exactly.
There you go. So, Michael, thanks a lot.
All right, take care.